Hi there, welcome back to Ms. Johnson's ELA mini lesson. This is mini lesson number 12, and we're going to talk about literal versus non-literal language. But before we get started, what you should have done for your homeschool log is you should have read this story, How Indian Summer Began. If you have not read that story, please pause the video, go back, reread it two times, and you need to write down the main idea. What is the story about? Go do that first before continuing on to this lesson. Here we go. All right, I really hope you read How Indian Summer Began because we're going to be looking at this story right here to distinguish between literal and non-literal language. First, before we get into the actual story, what we're going to do is discuss what literal and non-literal language is. Before we actually get into the literal versus non-literal language, if you look in the corner right here, this is called a pourquoi tale. That's the genre. So what that means is it is a story. It's known as an origin story. So it's a tale. It's a fictional narrative that explains how something became the way it is. So it is an origin story of how Indian summer began. Indian summer is basically a warm summer. So this story right here is an origin story of the Indian summer. Just a quick little introduction. You should have already read it. Go back and reread it. If you haven't, then we're going to analyze, look for literal and non-literal language. Go. Okay, so for literal and non-literal language, what you hear is that word literal. What literal means is realistic, real, it's clear, it says exactly what it means, and that's what literal language is. So literal language is real, it is clear, and it says what it means. So some examples are, wait a minute, be quiet, tell the secret, I am hungry. These are literal sayings that you say, and you say exactly what you mean. Then we have non-literal language. Non-literal language is kind of the opposite of it, and it says there is a hidden meaning within it. Usually non-literal language means something else, but it doesn't mean exactly what it says. So I'm going to get into a couple of examples. So one example is hold your horses. This is non-literal language because I'm not saying to actually go hold some horses. Hold some horses? No, that's not what I'm saying. What that actually means is the literal term, which is wait a minute. When I say hold your horses, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, slow down, it's fine. But it's not saying what it's meaning. There's a hidden meaning there. Another example is hold your tongue. I don't actually mean hold your tongue. What that actually means is be quiet. Hold your tongue, stop your tongue from moving, and stop talking. Okay? So the next one is let the cat out of the bag. I don't want you to go put your cat in a bag and then let it out. That's not what that means. That is the non-literal language, and it is a hidden meaning. The hidden meaning is tell the secret. Or the cat's out of the bag means you're telling the secret. And the last one is I could eat the entire refrigerator. Could you? Could you actually eat the entire refrigerator? Probably not. There's a hidden meaning there. The hidden meaning is I am hungry. So literal and non-literal language are opposites of each other. When you have non-literal language, it usually means something literal. So we're going to go back into our text, How Indian Summer Began. We're going to find 4 examples of sayings in the text, and we're going to find if it's literal or non-literal. Is it real? Is it clear? Does it say what it means? Or is there a hidden meaning? Does it not say what it's meaning? Let's go. Okay, so turn to your close reading packet page, this page, and read the directions. It says, read How Indian Summer Began and look for the use of non-literal and literal language that the author uses to help explain facts about nature. Underline details that you think are actually true and circle details that you think are actually true. Then complete the chart. Okay, so what we're actually going to do today, rather than doing that, is I'm going to give you 4 examples of literal and non-literal language, and you have to decide if it's literal or non-literal and explain why, okay? So in your How Indian Summer Began, your first sentence that you're going to write down is in paragraph 2. It's the very last sentence of paragraph 2. It says, the leaves were falling from the forest trees and the freezing winds below. So for details from the text, I want you to copy and paste, meaning using quotation marks, write down the sentence, the leaves were falling from the trees and the freezing winds below. Go do that now. Okay, so now that you've written down the detail from the text, what you need to do is decide if it's literal or non-literal. So looking at it, it says leaves were falling from the trees and the freezing winds blew. First of all, do leaves actually fall from trees? And do cold, freezing winds blow in the wind? Okay, is it real? Is it clear? Is it saying what it means? Or is there a hidden meaning? Circle if it's literal or non-literal and explain why. I'm going to tell you that it's literal. It is literal because leaves fall from trees and freezing winds blow. There's cold winds, okay? So you should circle literal. And how can you tell? Write down things that I've said. I can tell because leaves fall from trees and also there are cold, freezing winds. Do that now. Okay, so the next detail from the text is in paragraph 3. It is in the middle portion. It starts right here. And it says, in his dream, the master came to him. I am giving you these special seats, the master said. So I'd like you to, in quotation marks, write, in his dream, the master came to him. I am giving you these special seats, the master said. Go. Okay, so after you've copied and pasted that sentence, we're going to figure out if it's literal or non-literal. Remember, literal, it's real, it's clear, it says what it means. Non-literal, it has a hidden meaning. So in the story, what's happening in his dream, the master came to him and said he was giving him special seeds. Is that real? Is it clear? And could that happen? Or is there kind of a hidden meaning behind it? Is it literal or non-literal? Think about it. So this is an example of non-literal language because a master could not come to somebody's dream and give them special seats. So this is non-literal language. Circle non-literal. Okay, and then the next part, how can you tell? We can tell because somebody is giving somebody seeds in a dream and that can't actually happen. So go write down how you can tell that's non-literal language. Go. Okay, so we're going to get into the third detail from the text. The third detail is in paragraph 4, and it starts right here, and it's this whole sentence. It says, he went outside through the leaves, though the leaves were still falling, the weather was now as warm as summer. So I would like you to copy and paste that onto the third detail in your graphic organizer. Go. Okay, now we're going to talk about it. Is it literal or non-literal? He went outside, and though the leaves were still falling, it was now as warm as summer. So, can that happen in real life? Can you go outside, and even though the leaves are still falling, can it still be warm? Is it real? Is it clear? Does it say what it means? Or is there a hidden message? Think about it. Can you go outside? Can the leaves fall, but it can still stay warm? Is that literal or non-literal? It is literal. It's literal because that can happen in real life. Leaves can fall and it can still be warm outside. It doesn't have to be freezing cold. So circle if it's literal or non-literal and explain how you can tell. Go. Okay, the last one is kind of long, but it's really important. So we're going to copy and paste it. It's in paragraph 4 as well. It starts right here with the next, and it says, the next morning, the seeds had already germinated. Green shoots rose out of the soil. The sun rose and set again, and now the young plants were already waist high. So go ahead and go copy those couple of sentences down. Go. So is it literal or non-literal? So is it real? Is it clear? Does it say what it means? Or is a hidden message happening? So it says the next morning the seeds had already germinated. Green shoots rose out of the soil. The sun rose and set again. And now the young plants were already waist high. So in the story, they planted the seeds one night, and then the next day they had grown to be waist high. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever planted a seed from scratch, just a tiny little seed, but it could not grow to be waist high in one night. So, is that real? Is it clear? Does it say what it means? Or is a hidden message happening? That's right. It is non-literal language because seeds cannot actually grow overnight. So go write that down. So go circle non-literal and go write down why. Go. All right, and the last thing that we're gonna do is we are gonna apply this knowledge into the question on the bottom. So the question on the bottom says, which sentence from How Indian Summer Began uses non-literal language to describe something? So read through all of them, pick the one that explains non-literal language, and write your answer on your homeschool log. All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video and following along. Hope you understand it, can identify literal and non-literal language a little bit better now. Stay tuned for the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.